All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us as we near the end of day one of Intellus Institute for 2023. We're very excited to share the findings from the 2023 Trends and Futures survey with you. As I look around the room, I'm really excited to see familiar faces. And I also just want to take a moment to acknowledge how wonderful it is to be here with everyone in person. It's great to interact individually and see everyone. Very exciting to be here. My name is Jim Hickey. I'm a new member to the Trends and Futures team. I'm really excited to be joined by Abbey and our distinguished panel members, Chris and Jim, and we're thrilled to tell you about our research and our findings. So, since 2020, the Trends and Futures Committee has conducted research to track new trends within healthcare and share implications and share trends that we're finding that are related to healthcare market research. For wave 4 of this study, we fielded it in Q1 of this year. And we conducted it among a range of folks from industry and different agencies. The survey's evolved over the past couple of years. In 2023, we updated the questionnaire, streamlining some areas, and also adding some new topics, some new themes that have come up and emerged. For this presentation, we're going to focus on our findings from the 2023 survey. We would like to take a moment to thank and acknowledge our partners. We couldn't have done this research without them. So Trinity Life Sciences has sponsored and fielded the quantitative portion of the research for the past 4 years. Each year we get around 100 people to take the survey. Last year was one of the strongest showings that we've seen. We had over 140 people take the survey, which is great. In addition to the quant survey, the Trends and Futures Committee also dug into some of the themes that emerged from the survey. We did some qualitative research with pharmacists, healthcare providers, and patients to dig deeper into some of the themes that came up in the research. For each of these components, MedSurvey recruited the pharmacists and HCPs for the qualitative research. We want to say thank you to MedSurvey. The pharmacists included come from a variety of different retail pharmacy settings. We have pharmacists from big box stores, grocery stores, and national chains. The HCPs include a variety of different specialties. We have some PCPs, cardiologists, endos, psychs, and NPs. Rare Patient Voice sponsored the patient proportion of the qualitative research. We recruited patients across a range of different race and ethnicity backgrounds, different age groups, genders, and different conditions as well. All the patients that we recruited have experience using digital technologies to help manage their health. I just want to introduce the folks with me up on the stage here. I want to thank Christina and Jim for joining us. So Christina is currently the Director of External Growth at Biogen, and she's responsible for evaluating potential partners who are aligned to the core business needs of the U.S. commercial organization. Prior to joining Biogen, Christina led the U.S. Frontier Business team at Synovion and Sumitomo Pharma America, where she led partnership alliances with Behavior in designing and developing a behavioral health wellness platform, which was to be followed by the development of 3 digital therapeutic products, using VR technology. Jim Carroll, who we just heard from in the previous session, serves as the head of real-world evidence for Walgreens for their clinical trials business. He spent the better part of the last 2 decades working across several global health information and clinical research organizations, and commercializing use cases that rely on real-world data and evidence. Abbey, who I'm sure many of you know, is a partner at Hawk Partners. She's an experienced marketing consultant professional. She excels at translating analysis into creative strategies and tactics. She has over 20 years of domestic and international experience leading quant, and market research strategy engagements with pharmaceutical, health insurance, and financial services clients. And my name's Jim Hickey. For many years, I led the research team at Verilog, focusing on research among physicians and patients in the office. Recently, I've left Verilog and I've joined a company called DOCREPLAY.ai. And DOCREPLAY is a technology-based firm that is using AI to break through some of the limitations of traditional qual and quant market research. So in this presentation, we're going to focus on a couple of trends that emerged from the data from the survey. We chose two areas that membership indicated in the survey results that they feel that there's a lot of change and growth within these areas. So we're focusing on digital health technology trends and also trends in services at the pharmacy. We chose these concepts from a number of different themes, including market access and pricing, HCP marketing and customer experience, and product development and commercialization, and a bunch of other trends. So for each of the themes that we're going to go through, we'll share some of the data from the quant survey, and as well as some of the insights from the qual research that we conducted. And then we'll have a panel discussion with Chris and Jim for each of the topics. All right, so for the first section, what did we learn from the survey and follow-up interviews about digital trends? So first, we found that our membership expects greater adoption of digital technology in healthcare, particularly when it comes to diagnosing patients. Additionally, membership increasingly expects that technology will empower patients to provide the means to make their own healthcare decisions. So when I say digital health technologies, it's a huge category. There's lots that fits within digital health technologies. Everything from wellness apps all the way to FDA-approved digital therapeutics. And as we recruited patients and HCPs to participate in the research, we were looking for respondents who had experience with a variety of these different types of digital health technologies. So we found in our interviews that technology offers many benefits to patients, including the ability to collect and monitor data related to their overall health, as well as specific conditions. In many ways, we found patients said that health technology can give them a view into their bodies, into their conditions that they may not have had in the past. All these data have the potential to help aid in diagnosis and help determine the trajectory of a patient's condition. However, there is a lot of variation among patients in their approach and ability to share these data with their HCPs. For some patients, HCPs can directly access their data if they're using prescribed medical devices like CPAPs or CGMs, for example. In some cases, patients will share data from apps or connected devices directly with their HCPs in person. They may just hand them their phone and share some data that way. They may have a printout or a PDF that they can share with their physicians. While other patients don't share their data at all with their HCPs. HCPs report that health technologies can be a double-edged sword. So what do we mean by that? Well, they're enthusiastic about the potential for digital health technologies to really help their patients, but they do cite some challenges with using the data. So data from health technologies can vary greatly. Going from one app to the next, the data can be really different. And in many cases, it's not integrated into EMR, so it's not easy for the physicians to access it. Additionally, HCPs may have limited time to access that data, and they're not reimbursed for accessing it by insurance. When we asked HCPs about digital health technologies helping patients make their own decisions regarding their health, they consistently expressed their concern. I'm sure that's not a surprise to most of the folks in the audience. They worried that patients using their digital health technologies in this way, it could lead them to make adjustments to their treatment without medical guidance. And they worry that technology may mislead patients to make the wrong decision, or they may capture the data in a way that's inconsistent or could lead to a false reading. So membership anticipates patient adoption of mobile apps and companions as a part of prescriptions will increase in the near future. However, many members doubt that the use of digital health therapeutics and applications will become standard. So one of the challenges here is just the volume of digital health technologies that are available. So I found a statistic that I found to be really striking, that there's, as we look at digital health apps in general as a category, even back in 2021, there were more than 350,000 digital health apps available worldwide. That's a huge number. And of course, most of them are wellness apps, and only a small proportion of them are FDA-approved digital therapeutics. But still, physicians and patients have the ability to talk about all these. Patients have the ability to use some of these. And just the volume of what's out there can be really overwhelming to HCPs. So in our interviews with them, many of them have expressed concern just about the amount of options that are available to patients, and the fact that there is no one central source to vet content and recommend apps, aside from those FDA-approved digital therapeutics. Additionally, HCPs have expressed concern that they don't get detailed on digital therapeutics and digital health technologies in the same way that they do for prescription treatments. So they don't have as much education and information about them. All right, so we're going to move into our panel discussion. And for, so for our first question to our panelists, Christina and Jim, so we found that HCPs had mentioned that they don't have a clearinghouse to vet content, vet apps and digital therapeutics that are out there. Many of them wonder who could be responsible for this. So how could a mechanism be put in place to vet content for physicians so they could know what to recommend?
Well, do you want me to go? It's a great question, Jim. Thanks for asking it, because seeing that 350,000 app number begs the need for somebody to be taking an ownership and whittling away at what is useful and what is not. So that goes without saying. But who is responsible? I think that doesn't necessarily fall on the responsibility of one organization or one individual or one governing body. There's the FDA, regulatory bodies globally that have their guidances and frameworks to create a stepwise process to evaluating good technology with sufficient claims and data to back those claims. So that exists. But I would say that anyone touching a digital health technology has somewhat of a responsibility to vet out that this is fit for purpose. It's fit for your own personalized use case. And if you're going to prescribe them, then that should also fill into or fall under a clinical workflow and guidance with the appropriate organization or specific medical discipline. That's my short answer, but it's very complicated.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I think it is unusually complex. I think it's daunting to think about how to put infrastructure in place to sift through those 350,000 apps, and how that number will continue to grow exponentially. We have sponsors that do come to us with clinical research needs to support claims from a regulatory perspective. But what we find in talking to sponsors is there still does seem to be a lack of clarity about the regulatory as well as the reimbursement pathways for these. It's just not entirely clear. And based on that, it's difficult for us to work with digital therapeutic companies, because there's obviously to go into and to support claims with an interventional study through randomization. There's a lot that needs to go into that, and it's a very significant investment. And usually when we start to talk in those terms, there's a bit of a pause on the sponsor side, and a desire to sort of go back and think through, does it make sense for us to go through this involved process that is still a little bit murky, and without really knowing what the potential upside is going to be based on the proliferation of apps and what is available out there and what a patient could just go and access. So I think it isn't up to any one entity to sort of tackle this. But I think that there are, efforts on the app developers that should be put in place. There's regulatory that should be put in place as well. And I think it's really got to be a collective effort to try to sift through these and help physicians, better understand which ones they should be talking to their patients about.
I couldn't agree more, Jim. If I could add to that, the clinical evidence is the lowest bar, right? Well, a hard one to achieve, but it has to start there. There has to be a clinical utility. And I would shout out to two organizations that I think help build frameworks so that people who are assessing digital technologies to bring into a health system, for example, they could ask the right questions of the manufacturers who make them. And that would be Digital Therapeutics Alliance. So assuming that you're looking at tools that have medical claims associated to it, you may want to look at their frameworks and guidances to ask the right questions and evaluate appropriately. The other one would be DIME, you're probably familiar with. Stands for Digital Medicine, and they have a library of tools for clinical trial applications. So it's a little bit different. They're not going on to make any claims, but they can digitize endpoints that might facilitate clinical trials.
Great, thank you both. Next question, and a good segue to our next topic, would be what kind of role could the pharmacy play in trying to help educate patients, help increase use and get information out there about digital health technologies?
Do you want to start with that one? You already touched on it, the tip of the iceberg of your earlier presentation. That was great.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that pharmacists can do in this area, and become more of a visible healthcare advocate for patients, just really based on the access that patients typically have to their community pharmacist. And I think that this is something that pharmacists would welcome, the ability to help patients to to sort of sift through some of these things and provide feedback and, you know, where it makes sense based on the understanding that they're able to obtain from the patient, sort of direct them to a good next step. That may be their primary care doctor, for example. But I think they could be a good conduit for helping patients to sort through some of the considerations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think in a lot of the market research I've been exposed to, the relationship between pharmacist and patient / consumer has been one built on trust, right? And I think that gives or lends itself to that educational component, but more importantly, the personalization component, because digital health technologies aren't for everyone. I think the promise has been exponentially oversold. If I'm perfectly honest. I think it does have a place. I think we'll see it grow in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not sure I agree with every finding in the survey, forgive me, but I think that we have a long way to go for that type of adoption to really penetrate. So that being said, there may be a very specific person who really can thrive leveraging digital health technologies, and what better way to find out about them than your local pharmacist.
Great. So with that,
Well,
I'd
I
like
think
to,
that's the perfect segue to the next topic, which is pharmacy trends, and specifically retail pharmacy trends, knowing that many of the companies are also invested in specialty pharmacy. So we surveyed all of you. Many of you probably took the survey, and most of you agreed that retail pharmacy will continue service expansion. But you're less sure on whether that will include primary care. So the bar on the left was the most agreed upon statement in the survey of 40-something questions, that services provided by retail pharmacies, such as vaccines, diagnostics, lab services, would continue to expand. That's 79% top 3 box. Then and we changed that question this year, so we're only showing 2023. The other question, that retail pharmacies that initiate minute clinics will become primary care providers, a little bit more vacillation on that, but we're seeing kind of an upward trend, I guess you could say, in agreement that that is going to happen. So what we thought we would do this year is go out and talk to some retail pharmacists. Okay, so what did the retail pharmacists have to say about this? First of all, they do agree that they see their role expanding to be less transactional and more relationship-based. So the past entailed less interaction with patients and more of a focus on filling vaccines and filling prescriptions as quickly as possible in an effort to meet near-term goals. This is how the pharmacists are seeing it. And then since COVID, they've seen their roles having moved up that value chain a little bit more. They've seen interactions a lot more with patients, and also doing a lot more medical therapy management than they have in the past. And then for the future, while pharmacists don't necessarily see themselves providing primary care, they do see themselves potentially filling some gaps in basic care, and also working more with some of the primary care providers that may be on site or nearby. Okay, and then let's move on to the next slide. So just to delve a little bit further into the past. So pre-pandemic, pharmacists felt a lot of pressure to meet these short-term bottom line focus goals of filling prescriptions and vaccinating. At the time, it was flu, shingles, pneumococcal, tetanus. Some suggested their bonuses were tied to over-the-counter and front-of-store sales. And then at the same time, they said that their companies began investing in ways to make all these processes more efficient. So technology like e-prescribing and automation, centralized filling, direct delivery, and increasing hiring and training of support staff. To kind of express This is more kind of the migration from the past to the present. This is a quote from one of the grocery chain pharmacy managers. The past several years seem to have been more bottom line focused. It was all corporate driven, how many prescriptions we can fill and how fast. I went to pharmacy school to help people, so that was frustrating at times. At the same time, the company has hired staff and invested in technology that has made filling prescriptions faster and given me more time to do what I went to school for. Okay, so then we get to the present, where COVID didn't necessarily, COVID, I guess you could say, accelerated this streamlined vaccination process and improved the digital front door, whereas patients can schedule vaccines and do other things on apps and that sort of thing. And then we heard about vaccination increasing more, not just in store, but with mobile clinics and on-site at employers. And then while medication therapy management is not anything new, many suggest that they're doing a lot more of it. So contracting with managed care to follow up with patients who are taking multiple medications and give them a little bit of advice on things that they can do better or talk to their doctors about. They also suggest they are doing more in-store screening and testing for things like flu. There's been increased promotion of their ability to provide patient consultation and engagement. You might see, for example, on receipts or in front of stores, talk to your pharmacist. We even heard of, we talked to one pharmacist who suggested that their employer is encouraging them to get out on the floor more. So if somebody's looking at some section of the over-the-counter, can I provide you advice? What's going on with you? So being seen more in that role that they want to be seen in. They also suggested greater partnership with providers. And while they aren't necessarily staffing clinics themselves, they did notice that there has been this expansion, that they're getting a lot of fill requests from some of those clinics. So through, for example, Walgreens backing Village MD and CVS buying Oak Street. So while the pharmacists aren't the ones staffing those, they do see this as part of the present and then into the future. And just to cite a couple of statistics, and Jim can correct me on this one if I'm wrong. So Walgreens backed Village MD has 600 locations with 200 attached to stores and then 400 additional walk-in clinics. And I hope that's close. And then CVS is saying that it will have 300 centers with Oak Street by the end of 2024, in addition to its minute clinics. So then let's see a couple quotes before we move on to the future. So this one, pharmacists are the -- most trusted professional, is what we were told. I don't know where the statistic is coming from, but I tend to find it believable. They're approachable. You can get recs on drug therapy and common ailments. And this pharmacy manager says, I want patients to know that we are a valuable resource. We aren't just putting white pills in an amber vial. And we heard this, that was a theme we heard a lot. We're not just wearing a white coat behind the counter. And then we had another say, we have a mini clinic on site where people go for minor things, or I might send them there if they say, come in for a pregnancy test. It's good because a lot of people don't want to go to the doctor, or they don't have time, or they can't afford it. And I think if you were here for Jim's presentation before and paid attention to the statistics about, what was it, 79% of Americans live within 5 miles of a Walgreens, that speaks to that convenience and that, affordability aspect. So in the future, most pharmacists see pharmacies and to some degree themselves playing a greater clinical role. So convenience and limited primary care capacity may be one driver of patients going more towards pharmacies. And another statistic is that there was Wolters Kluwer did a survey at the end of 2002 that suggested 61% of Americans could envision getting most of their primary care at a pharmacy. And that number was higher, as you might imagine, for the younger generations. Pharmacists also suggest they have the potential now to offer more clinical services. So test and treat. My understanding is that that is possible in 12 states where for some basic things like flu or cold sores, pharmacists can actually treat. Diagnostics and testing. Sometimes this might happen like via telehealth with a provider. And then some pharmacists feel that some feel on the test and treat and their ability to treat. Some feel that yes, they're comfortable with limited prescribing, but really extensive prescribing at the level that a primary care physician might do, they're not quite comfortable with. Don't think that's quite they're quite at the level of their training. And then just in general, some perceive that patients are coming to them more for medical advice than they have in the past. So that's another gap that they can fill. If, I think one of the pharmacists said that patients on average interact with their pharmacist 10 times more than they do with their primary care physician. So it seems like a no-brainer that if they're getting to know their patients and interacting with patients, that they can fill that role. And then I just wanted to note that we really none of the pharmacists we spoke with mentioned Amazon or Cost Plus or any of these new entrants. So I'm not saying anything about that. And that's why. So I'm gonna share a couple more quotes. And then we can get to the panel questions. So these are pretty representative of what we heard. We're definitely going towards more clinical. It's beyond dispensing and counting pills. Since COVID, we are more on the front lines. In Florida, we can now do test and treat for the flu, cold sores, acne, and even birth control pills. And then another national chain pharmacist said the big push right now is for pharmacists to have prescribing rights. If that happens, then I think the role of pharmacy will definitely change. Right now, we have NPs and PAs staffing many clinics, but maybe it'll shift more towards pharmacists. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to the panel. And I'd love to start with you, Jim, just to get your thoughts on, how that aligns with how you see pharmacies and the role of pharmacies evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really sort of underpins certainly what we're thinking about at Walgreens. And I talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the talk earlier, where, there really is a big gap in care relative to primary care. And this is, really what is being set up with Walgreens and some of the other major retailers who I won't mention by name, as they're basically going down the same pathway. I think the important thing to do is to view it as a continuum of needs of patients, and pharmacists are really in a great position because they do have a trusted relationship with patients, and they're well-versed, especially, when they understand what's available within the store. If it's a Walgreens Health Corners, for example, and, how that's staffed and what types of services are available there. There's lab services based on a relationship with LabCorp that are on site as well. You mentioned Village MD and the adjacency there. I think it's really becoming that continuum of needs that patients have, and being able to go into a Walgreens and talk to the pharmacist. I think they're going to be, again, in a position to be able to help them coordinate sort of where to go. Are you best served with an over-the-counter treatment? Do you need to go into the room over there for an HbA1c test? It sounds like something more serious. Village MD, if you go through that door there, you're in Village MD. I think it's really providing that level of convenience and access for a lot of the primary care services that it seems large health systems are stepping away from. From a patient perspective, I don't know if others have that same experience. I know when I call my primary care physician, was part of a large regional health system in the area here. it's 3 to 4 months to get an appointment. And that's the gap in primary care right now that the retailers are looking to really looking to support.
So really enhancing that patient experience or improving that patient experience from an accessibility standpoint. In other way, in what other ways do you see it? Some of these innovations improving the patient experience or impacting it?
Yeah, I mean, it is all about access and convenience for patients. I mean, we've announced publicly relationships with DoorDash as well as Uber Health, where we can provide free medication delivery to patients who can't get into the stores or who need transportation to get to a visit at a Village MD, for example. So, you know, that's really what we're looking at, is developing that network of partners that can truly support the Walgreens patients in their healthcare journey, really around the primary care side.
Great.
Yeah.
Another question, and then I don't know how we're doing on time, so we might want to open it up, but I mean, I think this next question is very relevant to everyone here. How do you see the way that biopharma interacts with pharmacies and pharmacists changing in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I think historically, pharmacists have been a call point for pharma reps. Maybe that's diminished since I was in that space. But I think it's going to emerge as an important relationship for biopharma companies to have with pharmacists, because they are going to be playing a much more active role in helping to quarterback care for patients, and, you know, building that relationship, understanding, you know, what patients are coming in and presenting with, how frequently they're being sort of directed to an on-site physician, for example, at a Village MD. I think really understanding what that sort of primary care continuum is going to be important information for biopharma companies to have, and the source of that is going to be the pharmacist.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree. I think, you know, you're well positioned to meet patients exactly where they are, even before they become a patient. So I do think that even digital health technologies might need to shift toward the pharmacist, and primary care just won't look the same as we are familiar with it today. I think you sit in that very unique position to transform it.
Well, and when you mention digital technologies, I think of things like continuous glucose monitors are the ones that have kind of been out there already. And so I wonder, when you think about that continuum of care, you know, in the past clinics, people have gone to for more acute things, sore throats, that sort of thing. Do you see chronic conditions like diabetes being managed within pharmacies ultimately?
That would be interesting. It would be great, actually. It would alleviate a lot of problems, but I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than having just an extra care pathway within a retail pharmacy. Yeah, I think we're a long ways off of that, but I would imagine a lot of people would rather see it shift out of the health system and meet people where they are. So I was intrigued by Philips, who I think do a great job of creating point of care tools that are very interoperable. And the CEO, this is years ago, I think it's pre-COVID, so I'm sure a lot has changed. But in the Netherlands, they were building out cath labs in shopping malls because shopping malls were losing their tenants, and there was a gap in healthcare navigation, people not knowing where they were going. So the population of interest was out shopping. So they just set up appointments next to retailers, which was crazy at the time, but it was a program that was innovative and worked for a bit of time. I'm sure COVID changed things for them, but it's just an example of how we need to shift our paradigm models.
Yeah, and there's a term that's not easy to say, but retailization. I mean, that's largely
Consumerization of healthcare. That's
There we
been
go.
my buzzword for the longest time.
it's happening, and you know, the pieces are starting to come in to place for that. And I think it's important for biopharma companies to be thinking about that as well, and the implications on their organizations of what this might mean for them. I think it was earlier this week, Costco announced a partnership with Sesame, I think is the name
Yeah.
of the company.
$29 for a virtual visit.
$29 for a virtual visit, and I think the SLA is within 2 hours. You'll be able to get access to a licensed physician for a telehealth visit. So, you know, a lot of these things are technology driven and are coming into play to make care more accessible to patients, sort of where they are at a point in time, so that they don't have to wait, you know, 3 or 4 months to get a visit with their primary care doctor.
Yeah, we really do have to learn from other industries though, right? If we think about Netflix and the comforts that we have in our own homes, this on-demand concept is going to permeate a lot of the future generations. It already has. I see it in my household. I'm sure you see it in yours. So there's this persona of consuming technology at a rapid pace, for better or worse. We've got to start considering as the norm. It's not scary. It has its dangers, so we have to do it responsibly, but it's there and it's now.
That's why I think Best Buy's in
Oh, yeah.
healthcare now too, which is really interesting to think about the implications there of, you know, being able to monitor patients at home and provide that information to service providers so that they can effectively monitor patients with specific conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually brings up another question I have, but I think if people have questions, we'll have time for a couple questions. So if people want to kind of be prepared to go up to the mic, that would probably be best. But so that sort of brings up another question I have of how do you see the chains like Walgreens and others who we won't name comparing to say the big box stores and Amazon, which we all know is going fast into healthcare. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about convenience. I think it's about the customer journey and what their experience is in going into a big box retailer or a grocery store or a pharmacy. It's really aligned with what the expectations are of those entities. And I think, you know, habit drives a lot of this, right? And it really is about how that can be, you know, picking up a prescription, just to keep it simple, you know, aligns with your, you know, weekly stop in Walmart, for example. I think it's about that degree of alignment. I think if you look at the prescription share of retailers, as well as other providers of prescriptions in the US, it's interesting to see how that plays out. And the big retailers like Walgreens and like the other entities, they still have the lion's share of prescriptions in the US. And it's a little bit of the 15-75 rule, where 75% of prescription dollars go through the top 15 prescription fillers. And you don't see online entities on that list yet. I mean, obviously, you know, Mark Cuban's company, the Cost Plus offering, I know that that's just been out there for a couple of months, but it's how much do I want to think about my prescription and what I need to do to manage that if it's a chronic condition. And I know from retailers, I'm getting all of the reminders that I need to pick it up, and there's a lot of convenience there. So, you know, you just have that behavior, that stickiness, if you will, that seems to be lingering.
On the vaccination, I think in 2021, retail pharmacies crossed other channels, primarily physicians' offices, in terms of providing adult vaccinations. And my understanding is that hasn't dipped back. So it may have been spurred by COVID, but hasn't gone back. So
Probably opened up opportunities for more, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
I would also be curious about like the distribution between newly approved drugs where, you know, people are needing to have that human touch and help them walk through. So the newly diagnosed, the new brands to market, where they looking to consume the information around those prescriptions and label information versus the generics that you can get on Amazon or Mark Cuban's, like that is a little bit different as well. So it's really segmented by TA, I would think.
Hi, I'll start the questions.
Go
if you
for it.
like. Yeah, so hi, it's Claire Market from Day One. I'm curious where you're netting out. Do you see some of these digital health diagnostics and therapeutics creating greater equity in health or actually less? I'm curious for your perspective.
I don't know that we're ready to net out. I love the question and I appreciate it, but I don't think we're ready. I don't think we've had, you know, a good solid opportunity to study how people are adopting them, who's adopting them. I've had several projects where market research was coming back saying people had no idea these digital health technologies exist. And then you get some that we've heard today where they're expecting adoption and greater adoption and diagnosis, which is a whole other issue, I think. But I think, you know, what we can agree on is that the trend is there. There's an acknowledgement that technology has a role. How we define that role and shape it for the best of its use case is still requiring some finessing, I would say. But the diagnostic space is tricky, is where I would want to stay away from digital health technologies, but those empowerment tools, those enablers that make the patient physician or maybe soon patient pharmacist conversations more insightful as to what's really going on in managing multiple chronic conditions, those really complex cases. I think there could be a lot of value there that ends up reducing costs and limiting the bottlenecks that we're seeing in traditional brick and mortar health systems. So that's just a quick reply.
And also just in speaking with patients with a variety of different conditions, there's great variation in what I heard from patients in terms of how they're using technologies, what they're using, what they use for themselves versus what they use for a particular condition. It's really different as you look at the broad variety of different types of conditions that patients might have.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, let's have a big, huge round of applause for the esteemed panel. And the plug, huge thank you. I was getting there. Huge thank you to the Trends and Future Committee, which welcomes new members. So you too can feed into our ongoing Trends and Future surveys. Special thank you to Jim and Abbey for their moderation, and particularly to our esteemed panelists, Christina and Jim. Thank you for staying, Jim, and for joining Christina. If we can beg your indulgence for just another few minutes, I just wanted to welcome Vin Gokul from Life Science Dynamics to present iAd Board. And then we will be ready for the reception. So give us 10 more minutes, Vin.
We're really excited to demo our a platform called iAd Board, and as you can see, the title is Research Done Your Way, One Platform with Everything You Need. And I'm going to try and convince you why this is the one platform that all of you need. So before we get into the actual demo, just a few minutes to go over the concept and why we're doing this. So of course, all of you know that market research, how invaluable it is, and that's a kind of bread and butter thing for insights generation that are used extensively in the organization by many functions within the pharma industry. We're also seeing that there has always been a push to get more out of less from market research, and at the same time, when we are dealing with shrinking budgets and expedited timelines, we also have to make sure that we don't compromise on quality and depth of the insights. And to top all of this, recently there has been a trend towards or rather a shift towards more and more digital type of interactions, or rather shift away from in-person interactions. And this has been seen among HCPs as well as general population, where they want to get involved in research that's conducted over online platforms. And while it gives them the convenience of not having to travel somewhere, spend a lot of time, they also struggle to be engaged in this platform. And that's where we want to come up with better solutions so that we get quicker research done, but at the same time, we don't lose the quality of insights. So the solution that I'm going to present today is called iAd board. Name makes it sound a bit like it's an advisory board, but essentially it's a online discussion board platform. It's entirely cloud-based, and it helps us increase efficiency of research by providing flexibility of when to respond to the respondents. It allows real-time observation for the market researchers. So all of you involved in using this tool can always keep an eye on what's happening in real time. And through all of this, what we have observed is that this reduces time taken overall. It also makes it more likely that you'll get participants, meaning the cost per interview is lower. And all of this, to add to all of this, of course, we get deeper insights. So again, before jumping into the demo, just a bit about how the iAd board study is executed. From the point of view of recruitment, it's very similar to a qualitative type of approach where we screen respondents and include them to participate in the iAd board. And the way we've structured it is that they have to log in for a small amount of time each day for maybe 3, 4, or 5 days in a week. It's very flexible. It can be done with breaks in between, or it can be consecutive days. But what that lets them do is choose when they want to interact with it, right? So they don't have to set aside a specific time in a specific day. It also breaks up the entirety of your research question set into small bite-sized chunks, which can then be given one chunk at a time on each day, so that they don't get overwhelmed with the process, and they spend more time thinking and responding and kind of exploring the platform as much as they are giving you answers. So we have seen that it enhances the levels of engagement. It also keeps them engaged through some intuitive and creative exercises. So, the usual multiple choice questions, ratings, rankings, everyone has that, but we can't always expect people to remain too engaged in that. And we have some other things that keep people engaged. It provides real-time visibility, and I'll show you in the demo how that works. It's a really useful tool. And finally, we also have the option of encouraging community interaction, where the participants see each other's responses and have the option to respond to their fellow respondents and get into a discussion and throw ideas around. And it's really helpful for when you're looking for some blue sky thinking. So I'm going to start the demo. It's a recorded video, so pay attention. I will speak over it. I don't think I'll be able to pause anything, so I'll try and keep pace. Hope this works. Yes. So the first thing is I'm going to talk about how it looks to a respondent. So here I'm like Dr. 56. Let's say I'm blinded respondent. I get a link. I log in. Just need the link. There is no need for any kind of password or username. Makes it really straightforward. I log in, I start with day 1. Those are the only questions I see. Then there's a usual intro page. There's also a demo or tutorial that's built into it. I'm not showing it here, but that takes a new first-time user shows them the ropes. And then they start accessing their questions. So they will see some survey type questions, some objective ones, simple single choice, multiple choice to get them started, get them warmed up. They can enter, some numerical responses, and then they hit post, which then posts their response to the board. And then they will see the responses from other people there as well. Then they'll also get some open-ended questions. And this is a really nice feature where, based on their single choice response, we can open up new questions to them and get them more involved in a discussion, make it more open-ended. And again, we can turn this feature on and off where they see other people's responses, but this is the view where we're showing that they can scroll through, look at what the other doctors have said, and they can even put a comment on somebody else's response, right? And that's how we get a discussion started in a community board fashion. They log in the next day, they'll see that some of the questions have moderator comments. So when they open it up, it'll pop up and they'll ask, hey, here's a question from the moderator that someone in our team has gone in and read responses and posted a question, and they have to respond to that. They'll move on, post that response, and then they will see the actual pre-programmed questions for day 2. So it's always where they get a sense that there's someone at the other end. They're not just taking a survey. And again, they post it, they will see what responses have been put up. Now, how does it look to a blinded observer? So typically a research sponsor will be given an observer access, and the research sponsor can go in, look at the board, look at all the questions that have been answered so far, pick anyone they want, scroll through, read the comments, take it in. They can, and again, this is all double blinded. So at no point will any of the interaction from the observer be seen by the respondents. They will also be able to post comments. So in a second, you'll see here that as an observer, if you have maybe a follow-up question that you would like to ask, you can just go straight in, type it up, and hit post. And the double-blinded nature of it makes sure that it's not visible directly to the respondent. So there's no risk of any information that they shouldn't see being shown to them. It's only seen by the backend moderators who can then frame the question properly, make sure it's asked in a blinded manner and posted. To the left, you'll also see that the objective questions the summary statistics get updated on the fly. So on the top left corner there, you see those are the statistics that you can see. Another nifty feature is the one-click translation. Say you're conducting research in Spanish. Here, you just go in, hit that translate button, and it uses the Google Translate API to translate everything into English. Some of the exercises we use to keep them more engaged, for example, this is card sorting, putting things into buckets, can be used in a variety of different ways. Here is being done for products. You can do it for product attributes, like what are your must-haves and nice-to-haves, those kind of things. There's card scoring as well, which is, I'd say, a more advanced cousin of your usual ratings questions, because here you get them to interact with images and place them on a sliding scale. So instead of someone having to answer 5, 6, or 7 different rating scales, 1 to 7 repeatedly, they can put things right next to each other, and that helps them visualize the comparison in a much better way, and that gives you more accurate answers. Another thing here is a pin task. Also quite effective, where you can show them an image, which could be a TPP, a concept, or something like that, and have them interact with specific parts of that image. And then they can pin their comments onto that image. They can also indicate a sentiment, whether it's positive, negative. And this also can be used to get a heat map output quickly. Last but not least, or second to last, is a canvas test, where we can upload an image that serves as a canvas for them to work with. So here we have done it with a patient journey schematic, and a patient go in and emphasize the areas that they have experienced. They can use free text, they can use pens, they can add images of their own. So they can just play around with it and make it more interactive that way. The last one is the screen capture test, which is really interesting because a lot of times we want to observe how people interact with a website or any kind of online medium. And essentially this is like how you do screen capture, but it's an easy way to capture and upload it for the use of research. So this person just looked at the website, the whole session was captured, they hit record and then post, and that screen capture in its entirety gets caught up. So many different uses of this. You're running out of time, but I think this was the demo. I hope you liked it. Where do we actually have seen that this tool has been very useful. One is where you want to have a good mix of qualitative and quantitative insights come in from the same piece of research. There is synergy when you conduct both aspects at the same time in terms of the insights you get as well as the cost. It's also good when you're finding it difficult to keep participants engaged, or you're just finding it plain difficult to recruit them just because of the scheduling requirements. And we've also had a lot of interest in it from an internal stakeholder research perspective. And last but not least, of course, when you have repeated needs of research from the same group of participants, it's very quick and easy to onboard them into a platform like this on a shorter notice versus having them set up phone calls and interviews and book their time with them. So lots of different ways we can mix and match and leverage this. And it's a tool that helps complement your usual traditional qual and quant research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vin. Wow, really an action-packed first afternoon. Our program resumes tomorrow with breakfast starting at 7:30, followed by the health literacy certification training at 7:45 in this ballroom. Please sign up at the Intellus desk if you haven't already for health literacy training, and make sure you're down here to grab some breakfast and come on in by 7:45 to get that training and get certified. We will be handing out actual certificates for the training once you complete the training. Then we have a great program lineup for tomorrow with breakout sessions, roundtables, some general sessions, etc. So check the agenda, culminating in the awards dinner for tomorrow evening, which is an event not to be missed. For now, enjoy the reception this evening and networking, and we'll see you all here bright and early tomorrow morning for health literacy certification. Thanks.